Fourth quarter is here. It's here. And if you are avoiding it, then this podcast is for you. And we're going to talk all about my best tips for fourth quarter. This is Melissa Franks, your host of the Opt-in podcast. And this is where we go from surviving to thriving in business. This podcast is for anybody that works at a business, that owns a business. This is my top of mind tips for how to have a successful fourth quarter in 2025. I lost a good chunk of my life this week. I'm just going to admit it right there. Diving into what the experts and analysts are saying is going to happen this holiday season. Why? Because it's important to everybody. As a consumer, I kind of want to know what they're predicting. And as somebody that works with a variety of businesses across every single industry, I want to be able to best advise my clients and you, the podcast listeners, on what to do, how to plan, and the best way to position yourself in the fourth quarter so that you can have the results and the success that you want. Sounds good, right? So here's what they're saying. And we're going to go from the bottom to the very top. So they start with Gen Z. And what they're saying about Gen Z specifically is that they are going to shrink their holiday spending. Not only are they going to shrink their holiday spending, they're going to spend the dollars that they do allocate to experiences. What we know about the Gen Z shopper is that they're pretty selective with the things that they buy, the stuff that they accumulate, and they would rather spend their money living their life. So that means they're going to be buying trips and concert tickets and paying money to go to performing arts. They're not going to be buying a sweater or a nice smelling candle. It's really not where they're going to be taking their limited dollars and putting them to use. So Gen Z spending is shrinking, and they're going to be spending the money they have on experiences. If you are in the business of selling experiences, listen up. You want to target Gen Z. The next group as we kind of move up is lower middle class. And here's what's really interesting is analysts are predicting that lower middle class is going to spend more money this holiday season than they have in prior years. Now, it could be because they have growing families, and we all know that the holiday season with small humans around is a big deal. It could be that they just have a tendency to maybe not be conservative with their spending during these periods of time. Who knows? They're saying that their money is going to be put to good use in the marketplace this season at higher volumes than ever. So if you target lower middle class, these are your folks. When they talk about upper middle class, here's where the other shocking piece of information is going to come from. We think of upper middle class as having more disposable income. What's also happening is that they're being more conservative with their buying decisions. And so their spend this holiday season is going to shrink. And unlike Gen Z, we don't know where they're actually planning to spend it. At least with Gen Z, we know what they want, and we can tailor ourselves to that. With upper middle class, we're not so certain. And it can be that they are more shrewd with their dollars. It doesn't mean they're not going to be spending. It's just if that's your target market, you're going to want to consider some of these other tips that I'm going to give you in the podcast in order to capture market share there. And then our always insulated group is the affluent, the high net worth. They have disposable income. They buy things when they want them. They gift well, and their spending will remain the same. There is no change. So if you are really focused on luxury customers that are in the luxury marketplace, then you're good. There isn't a prediction that anything really material is going to change for them this year. So what does all of that mean? And why are you talking about it now in September? Well, because first tip, incoming. Fourth quarter starts in September. It just does. And I'm not talking from a basis of planning. Although, if you have not created a fourth quarter plan, do it right now because October is fourth quarter. The reason that I say that fourth quarter starts in September is because in volatile economies, which is where we are, what we want to do is capitalize on the cash that people have in their hand now. What we cannot do, none of us can, even people in the inner circle with the president, we cannot predict what the economic landscape is going to look 2 months from now, almost 3 months from now, at the end of November. We cannot predict. What we do know, what we have seen over the last 8 months or so, is that the economy is volatile, that tariffs come, tariffs go. What we know is that currently low-cost websites like Temu that we could shop for, their prices are incredibly expensive because they lost their loophole related to tariffs. What we don't know is what's going to happen with the jobs market and if the data that we're going to get is even accurate. So what we can do is take action based on what we know, which is what we know right now in September. And so my tip for you is do something shocking now. Do something attention-getting now. Do something to generate cash now so that you are less dependent upon the results in November and December. There are a variety of ways that you can go about this. My recommendation often as we get towards the end of the year is that you are really ensuring that you strategically are stacking goals, you are stacking promotions, you are stacking actions, you are stacking revenue-driving activities to generate as much momentum as possible long before the holiday season so that by the time you get there, it's icing on the cake. It's not the eggs in the batter, which is what a lot of you do. You know, the origin of Black Friday is that was the first day of the year that retailers, legacy retailers, were profitable. That's where Black Friday comes from. It wasn't like this big, like, let's kick off the holiday season the way that it is now. The origin story for Black Friday was just very simply, this is when we go from being in the red, which is negative, to profitable, black. And so I encourage you to continue to embody that sentiment that by the time you get to Black Friday, your goal for the year should be set. By the time you get to Black Friday, you should be profitable if you're a product-based business and that makes sense to you, kind of like the retailers of old. The goal always is to achieve the year-end goal as close to Black Friday as possible. That way, anything that happens is just icing on the cake. So September, take massive action, get attention, stack cash, start momentum. This is also an incredibly good time for you to pay attention to what the analysts are saying is going to happen during the holiday period. Why do you care? Because it will tell you if your plans are fool's errand. So this is tip number 2. You need to take whatever you have planned and you need to compare it to reality. If you have been here for a hot second, or if you have attended any of the master classes that we teach the growth formula framework, then you know that the very first step is to look backwards. What worked last time? What happened? Did it work? Did it not? What did I like? What did I not like? What do I never want to do again? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So to build your fourth quarter plan, you have to look at fourth quarter last year and say, did I get the results that I want? Am I willing to do what it takes to get those results again? Work? Or did something extraordinary happen? Like I just spent my whole life on social media selling my little brains out until I got what I wanted. Did I spend way too much on ads and they didn't yield? You have to look at what happened last fourth quarter and say, what am I going to do again and what am I not? Okay? That's how you build a plan. There's a whole bunch of other steps in there, but let's just say you did that step and you're like, I'm going to carbon copy last year's fourth quarter. Well, I just got done telling you that buying behaviors are going to be different this year. So now you need to look through the lens of your plans and say, do they hold up? Based on what I know now, will I be able to do those things and will they get the results that I want? Case in point, a lot of the analysts are saying that the response to the shrinking spend in a couple of those demographic areas that I mentioned, of course, not all of the demographic areas, I just highlighted 4, is to do deeper discounts earlier. And so what that means is that these holiday sales are probably going to start the first week in November. And what that means is that those that have the margin for it are going to start selling things at an incredibly low price. They're going to discount the heck out of themselves, hoping they get the traffic, hoping they get the early sales. Here's what I want to say to you, and this is my next tip, is that we know, and this is why listening to analysts is so important and looking at the data. We know that generally speaking, unless we're talking about the affluent, that the average US citizen is living paycheck to paycheck. We know this. We know they're not putting enough in their retirement. We know that they're not saving enough. We know that they have credit card debt. We know these things. Okay, so one of the reasons that I tell you to start in September is because they're not using their disposable income to make holiday purchases in September. It's why Amazon Prime Day in the summer works so well. Because every month, generally, even though you're living paycheck to paycheck, you've got discretionary money. You get to decide what you spend it on. It's not going to all of your household expenses. And there's nobody that's directing you on where to spend your money, except for maybe retailers that are saying, hey, it's fall, get some sweaters, right? It's the same as Prime Day in the summer. You have disposable income. Why not buy something at a great deal? Sure, they tell you to buy way ahead of time for early holiday shopping. That's not actually what they're talking about. All they're doing is capitalizing on the fact that it's July or August and you got a bunch of money sitting around, or a little money sitting around, and you need somebody to tell you where to spend it. And so Amazon says, hey, spend it with us, right? So you're going to follow the same logic in September and October, because nobody generally, unless you've got people that are just shrewd anyway, are doing early holiday shopping. What's going to happen is they're going to get to November, and then they're going to start to see those deals come through. They're going to start to spend their money in early November, and then by the time Black Friday sales hit, they're out of cash. They're out of cash because all they had was their discretionary spending for November, and then they're going to have to do it again in December. And why do I know this? Because this was my reality for a long time. Like, I lived this. I'm not speaking from a theoretical textbook sort of a situation. This is my lived experience, and I made plenty of money. On paper, anyway. I live in California, so we can talk about that another day. But this is the lived experience of the American consumer. So what I want you to understand is that you have an opportunity in September and October to influence the results of the end of the year, because you can take advantage of what we know is household cash management behavior and use it to your advantage. So if you do something too good to refuse in September, if you do something like so shocking that nobody else is doing in September, the people interested are going to buy. They just will. It doesn't matter if they're not holiday shopping. It doesn't matter if they buy the gift and then they never give it. It doesn't matter. You've captured their attention. They have money to spend, and it's always better to stack your fourth quarter success in third quarter. Ideally, September and October are both following that same structure and framework. It's really up to you on how you want to approach it. But again, the goal is to be profitable. The goal is to hit your year-end goals all before the Black Friday weekend. Now, as we take a look at how fourth quarter itself actually shakes out, October, November, and December, we know that generally speaking, most of the focus is on November and December. What we also know is that depending on the industry that you're in, you may decide to take time off. You may decide that you want to set it and forget it. You may decide that your business isn't a business that has peak fourth quarter activity and you're good. So if you're in one of those lanes, here's what I want to say to you. The fourth quarter isn't 3 months long, it's actually 5 months long, because you need to plan January. So remember how I just told you that you need to do some stuff in September so it really makes fourth quarter 4 months? Well, fourth quarter is actually 5 months. You need to plan January. And here's why. So when you look at your year, we're going to kind of go out from a macro perspective. What you want to understand is the seasonality of your business, because every business has seasonalities. Some of it you create based on product launches and these other things. Some of it is just buying behavior. It doesn't really matter the origin. It's just every business has seasonality. And so you know what goes on in your business, your industry in January. And what I want to tell you, because it's just piggybacking off of what I just said, is that people will still have money to spend in January. Is it true that they have more credit card debt in January than they did in December? Probably. Is it true that they are like sitting at home and recovering from the holiday period? Yes. Is it true that they spend money in January? Yes. It's all very true. And there's this fallacy out there that January is for the health and wellness industry. And if you're not playing ball in the health and wellness industry, nobody wants anything from you. And it's just not true. One of the clients that we work with is a product-based business, and we launch products in January. The reason that we launch products in January is because there's no other reason for somebody to care about what we're selling in January except for that. And so to build excitement, to build energy, to build attention, and to capture the spending ability of people that still are living paycheck to paycheck and still have discretionary money every month, we launch a product. It's always goes well, always. And that's because people have money that they're willing to spend. It just has to be on something that captures their attention. Using that example, you don't just wake up on the 2nd of January and you're like, we're going to launch a product today. That's not how that works. This was months, if not years in the making. And so what you need to do now, before you decide to take 2 weeks off in November and 2 weeks in December, or whatever you decide to do, is you need to execute your January plan. You need to plan it. You need to get everything lined up. You need to know what you're going to do. You need to hit the ground running. This isn't something that you can call an audible for, because what happens is that often, at some point in the beginning of the first quarter, business owners come to us and they say, last year, we didn't end the year the way that we wanted to. We didn't hit our revenue target, growth stalled, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And nobody's buying from us now. And we're concerned. We think the business is going to fail. It's shrinking. It's like, we have countless conversations at some period of time every first quarter with all sorts of businesses with panic. And it's because when we get down to the actual bottom of it, there was no plan. They showed up on January 2nd and are like, okay, here we go. Let's figure out what to do. And it means that you lose the whole month of January. You're barely starting in the month of February, and then all of a sudden you look up and you're like, I made no money. And it's because you went from being completely off, which is great, good for you. I want you to take all the time off, to what's going on? Let's dust stuff off. How's things going? And you get into analysis paralysis, and before you know it, it's January 30th and you haven't made any money. And so the best laid plans are plans that you lay. And the only way that you can do that is by planning January when you're planning everything else. Because if you think about this, if you think about writing the book of your business, right? If you think about writing the book of your business or the story of your business, what you want is each month to be a chapter. Your story doesn't end in December, right? It's like the Odyssey. If you ever got to read that in school, that thing is 10 pounds and it goes on forever and decades and centuries. Thing goes on forever. That's the story of your business. So unless you want the final chapter to be December 2025, you better at least create an outline for January. So as you're looking at your business, really start to think about, what's the September chapter going to say? What's the October chapter going to say? And really get those things in, and then figure out from yourself, what do I need to do to make what I've outlined for January actually happen? And when do I need to do it? This may mean that you have to work in December. I know some of you are like, I always take 2 weeks off at the end of the year and I check out and what? Cool. Then work the first 2 weeks. But I'm going to be real tough with you about this. You cannot phone it in January, because everybody knows that you're phoning it in. And the buyers in January are shrewd. They know they have credit card bills. They know they just got a pile of gifts that are still sitting somewhere, haven't been put away, right? They know all of those things. They're not eager to start spending their money unless you give them a reason to do it. So my next tip for you, and this is probably going to be the last tip, I could literally talk to you for the 75 hours about this, just so we're clear. My next and last tip for you is react fast, but not haphazardly. Here's what I mean. And I'm going to give you a couple of stories. So over the Labor Day weekend, which was literally just last weekend, we had a client that was running a Labor Day sale. They're a product-based company. And we have run this sale 2 other times. We know what the results are for the sale. We know it's highly successful. We know that people wait around for it. And the last time we ran it, we also know which ads worked really, really well. So we basically had just run this sale in this box, right? We decided to do something slightly different this time, which was actually run the sale a little bit longer. And we did all the things, the sale started, and I do what I do, and I start looking at data. And I was getting irritated, because day 1, data didn't do what I wanted it to do. Day 2 really didn't. And by the time we were rolling into day 3, I was like, we need to call in the cavalry. And the problem was that day 3 was the weekend, and I really started to panic. And then I said, you know what, Melissa, it's 5 a.m. on day 3. You need to just calm down. And so I did, and I didn't do anything. And then when I got to the afternoon, I checked the information again, and lo and behold, the results that we were looking for were finally happening. Activity and the sales and the interest and the clicks and all of the data that we were looking at to see, are we on the right track, showed up. It was just that what we predicted based on prior periods didn't happen. We thought if we start early, people will buy early. Guess what? They didn't. They waited until the weekend. We had this hypothesis that they were going to be out like enjoying the last weekend of summer and not wanting to shop on the weekend. We were dead wrong, which is what happens. And so were we paying attention? Yes. Were we ready to act fast? Heck yes. But did we act too fast? No. If we had acted too fast, if we had jumped in and said, oh, we need to change the creative, or maybe we need to make the sale juicier, or we need to do this, we would have never been able to yield the result that we did. We were just being impatient. So as you start to lay out what you're going to do for the holiday period, this is one of the things that I want to caution you about. If you are going to begin to run things earlier than you normally do because everybody else is and you got to get in there and you got to compete, then do that. But don't start making snap decisions based on a couple of days worth of data. What you need to do is say, is this identical to what happened last year? Identical. And if the answer is yes, then you kind of know where your peaks and valleys are going to be. And if they don't happen, then you need to say, maybe I need to tweak something. We never do anything in an identical fashion. So my guess is that you'll do something similar, but not identical. And so in that case, you need to allow a learning margin. You need to allow some room to try to figure out what's actually happening. Is it working just not the way that I thought it would? Is it working not with the right timing? You need to just give yourself a wait and see. What ends up happening, because so much is hinging on that Black Friday sale, on the last 6 weeks of the year, is that we get really reactionary and impatient. And when you're impatient and reactionary, you will blow up your business. Your results will not appear, you will not see the cash in the bank, and you will be so frustrated. So the last thing that you should do is be impatient and reactionary. You should be thoughtful and intentional and act with urgency when you have the indicators that tell you you need to do something different than what you were doing, okay? I cannot stress to you enough how you need to spend dedicated time building a plan for fourth quarter. Regardless of your industry, you are either trying to hit your annual goals for the year, you're trying to really maximize sales in fourth quarter because it's the best quarter of your year, you're trying to get as much cash in the door, the much profit in the door so that you can pay out bonuses. Everybody's got something in their business that they're shooting for in fourth quarter. I don't care what you sell, whether it's insurance or it's candles. Always, you have fourth quarter goals and you have year-end goals, and this is what needs to happen here. And so by building a plan that you can execute, a thoughtful plan based on past wins and losses, and capitalizing on the attention that you're able to get and how you're able to differentiate yourself amongst a whole other people, build the plan. And don't forget to build it in January. As I said, my best tip for you is to start fourth quarter in September, because the more you can stack cash in the bank, the less anxiety you have about those last 6 weeks of the year. But you do you. You know what's best for your business. These are just lessons that I've learned over 25 years and working with all sorts of small businesses here at On Call COO. If you are building a fourth quarter plan and you want somebody to check your work, or you don't really know how to do it or where to start because you always kind of wing it, then you are invited to schedule a call to see if a VIP day would be a good fit for you. We are running a handful of 4-hour sessions where we plan your quarter for you using the growth formula framework in a tactical way, in a way slightly different than what it's built and intended for, so that you have a fourth quarter plan that you can execute with confidence, that you know what levers to pull, you what metrics to track, so you know if you need to take actions. It will give you the confidence to really end the year strong and begin 2026 in a position of strength as well. We do not publicly offer VIP days. So if you are listening to this podcast, you are one of the very few that know they exist. If you are interested, click the link in the show notes, book a call, and then we'll see if this is the right thing for you right now. I wish you all the best of luck in fourth quarter, and please know that you are wise and you are strong and you are capable, and I believe in you. Until next time, friends.